I've set up here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Just jump right in today. Today's talk is going to be on brotherhood. So, what is it that makes a divine masculine man, and what gives him the most strength is often through his tribe, through a sense of brotherhood with other men that reflect back what is possible for him. And that is exactly why I created this group, so that we could all come together in that sense of brotherhood, so that we could all lift each other up to give each other that extra push to initiate ourselves into something more, to evolve into our greatest versions. I did the screen share now. All right. Oh, I don't want that. Okay, so brotherhood. And I like this quote. I'm not sure who the author is, but the battlefield is where friendships are forged and brotherhoods are tested. Because men grow most through adversity, which is often why the strongest bonds come from the most challenging times in your life. So it could be, I mean, especially men that are in the military, because they go through this intense psychological breakdown. Like basically you're just stripped down and you have to rebuild yourself, and then you have to go through the fire, going to war, going to boot camp, and it creates a bond that you don't have with anybody else. We don't really have that in our society aside from something like the military. But I believe that the personally, I don't uh, with the military, they're not often fighting for the right causes because they're led by people who are governing our world, who are led by money. But there's the principles are still the same. They utilize these concepts, these principles to form those bonds and create a strong foundation of what it means to be a man. Okay. So, by masculinity, and also wanted to update the chart. Should I take that in with the glasses on? A little harder to see than I thought. Just the glare in my glasses, I could see it through the video. It's throwing me off. So, all right. So again, I touch on this every week. Add to it. It's the chart that connects the divine masculinity that ultimately leads us down the path to our core purpose in life. Well, I have core and purpose as separate things, but basically the core is who we are beyond all the identities, all of the masks that we wear, all of the distractions and things that are keeping us from seeing the truth of ourselves. And each archetype, so there's several different, sorry, I'm skipping around here. The purpose is connected to the values, which connects to all these different points. And today I'm talking about brotherhood, because brotherhood creates what I'm going to talk about here in a little bit, constructive interference, which if you understand physics, you know that there are constructive and destructive waves. Constructive waves add to each other. the destructive waves basically cancel each other out. And when you have men coming together, it creates constructive waves, so it makes it bigger. So we begin to expand each other's consciousness, whereas destructive waves, like men and women, because we're opposites, it creates basically neutralizes that energy. Of course, I mean, like attracts like in some sense, but also opposites attract in a sense of like gender and what will bring us to our greatest purpose. So men remind each other of why we are here. And by building that tribe, we help each other to remember that purpose. No, that's not to say that being in a relationship with a woman isn't going to completely shift your life and completely create what's the best word here? Like an evolution of your consciousness. Because my partner that I'm with now has shown me so many aspects of myself simply because we are opposites in many ways. But having brothers who are on a similar path than you and who have similar core values and who are on a similar mission, it really brings out a new layer of yourself and pushes you to reach to that core depths of yourself. Yeah, and I like this picture here. It shows men coming together, connecting. This is like a masculine retreat, which eventually I want to host one of my own. But next step for me is to go to these retreats myself. Yeah, and I just basically talked about here that through consistency, accountability, and a common vision, we are able to lift each other up to create that constructive interference pattern that will ultimately expand us on every level. That's what we want. We want to find the right people that will give us that energy. So I'll just break down Brotherhood a little bit further. It's basically a group of men that come together who are willing to stand for each other through blood, sweat, and tears. And that's why I mentioned the military, because it's easy, it's a tangible concept for us to relate to. Because like I said, they went through boot camp, they go through war. It's something that's they don't have that kind of bond with anybody else. And so many men today have these shallow relationships because it's based off of, it's often centered around other people's struggles. So what I mean by that is like sports, for instance. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with watching sports, but it builds a sense of camaraderie around something that's more shallow. So you have like if you're watching a sports game, you aren't actually putting in the blood, sweat, and tears. You might form a brotherhood. You might form a bond rather with that person because you might like the same team. You might even like a different team. Just the act of watching that together, and you know, there's a lot of emotion when it comes to watching sports. I know my dad, he gets really into it. He's like, he gets up and he cheers and he runs with them basically, and claps and screams, and he gets really into it. And having other people there that also get into it creates that deeper bond. But like I said, it's a shallow bond because there's no actual blood, sweat, and tears that went into creating that thing. So in order for us to form a brotherhood, it's key to have something that's like a similar vision that we're focused on, and to create a sense of adversity, not create a sense of adversity, but to push through the sense of adversity together, to remind each other what's possible and to lift each other up so that we can push through those adversities as a tribe, as brothers. And just like when you have an actual sibling, when you have an actual brother, that's like a blood brother, you guys are connected through blood, through your bloodline. But when you are on the battlefield, you actually shed blood, sweat, and tears. You shed that blood. Not always, it could be, metaphorically speaking as well, not just directly speaking, but by shedding blood and pushing through obstacles together, it strengthens that bond and creates more of a constructive interference pattern. Because men grow most through adversity. That is what allows us to step up as leaders, to step up as fathers, to step up as men in our own being, to show up more for ourselves. If we once we push through that adversity, it helps to not only get us closer to our vision, but it reminds us of what is possible for us when we really put in the work, when we remain consistent, when we push through no matter what it takes. It's that grit that really lights you up, transforms you from the inside out. So, in talking about the constructive, destructive interference patterns, this is actually from the book, The 21 Lessons of Merlin by Douglas Monroe. And this is an incredible book. Honestly, it's been one of the most game-changing books for me along my path, especially after I went through my dark night of the soul back in, was it 2022, I believe it was. Yeah, I've gone through several dark nights of the soul, but this one was like, where literally everything got taken from me. I lost my car, my apartment, my girlfriend, just like my whole life, my driver's license, my whole life got flipped upside down. And I had to come back to square one to rebuild myself from the ground up. And along that journey, I met somebody who I would consider the magician archetype. I met him at a Renaissance festival, actually. And on the way there, I could feel like I was going to meet somebody, but I didn't even know it was going to be then. I just kept at least 3 to 4 times. I told my girlfriend that I just see this vision of this person that has this like long beard, and he's like basically like a druid, what I would perceive as a druid, or kind of like the same archetype of a Gandalf or a Dumbledore type of energy. They're actually based off of the Merlin, which Merlin, if you know, is the one that trained King Arthur. So I'm gonna paraphrase this a little bit, but within a mixed gender system, you have your physical attraction, which is the push-pull that comes where you have our physical genders. So with men and women, we obviously have a polarity with each other that creates an attraction, like a magnet. So it brings us together and causes us to bring out aspects of each other. Basically, it's it brings out the opposite end of the spectrum. So it can be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. But when we're looking to create a sense of brotherhood, or a sense of like working towards a common good, we want like, like attracts like. We want similar things. So in a spiritual sense, a spiritual interaction, this this energy that we want to cultivate, we want it to expand us outwardly, to expand us rather than to cancel each other out. So what he talks about here is that men manifest as an expansive energy, whereas women are more contractive. That's just the way that the feminine and masculine energy flows. It's yeah, it's basically like when we are connected to a woman and we are cultivating that energy with her, that's not to say that there's no like flow of energy, because it says it stops there. But it's not to say that there's no return. It's just the energy that is returned back isn't the same energy that was put in. So because it's an opposite energy, because the opposites attract, it creates the destructive interference pattern because they are opposites. when they're opposites, those waves basically cancel each other out, and um, you get a neutralization. You get like a if you're looking at it on a graph, which I kind of wish I'd put the one with an actual graph on there, then you get where it's at zero. So when the constructive and destructive interference patterns combine, it cancels each other out. So they have, that's the point where they meet at zero, basically, on the X and Y axis. And as you can see here, the constructive, so this right here is the constructive, which corresponds to this point here is the brightest. So on a graph, that would be, so the intensity distribution curve, that would be at the very tippy top because it has the strongest. It's adding to itself. It's adding and creating a wave that expands itself, whereas the destructive cancels itself out. So if you look at that on a graph, it's basically at zero, or it is at zero, and that's where it's darkest. And let's see here. That's why it's important, and that's what it talks about a lot in the book is having gender specific rituals and ceremonies because it creates that sense of like attracts like and creates that constructive energy pattern, those constructive energy patterns that ultimately elevate us to the next level, that allow us as men to take that next step so that we can help shift each other out of our current paradigm and level up. So a big thing that we have nowadays is like bro culture. And it's a very boyhood type of energy. So even if we come together with people that are that do create that constructive energy pattern, it doesn't necessarily mean it's for the greatest good. It doesn't mean that it's for our best interest. And basically the term bro culture is like a shallow connection that demonstrates that we're not necessarily men coming together. We're like it's the immature masculine, the boyhood energy coming together, which conjures up the image of frat parties, locker room banter, and a stoic, often superficial facade of what it means to be a man. I just got a picture here of a frat party. And as you can see, just by looking at them, they don't have that sense of embodiment. They don't have that sense of manhood cultivated within them. It's not to say that you can't have fun, you can't have parties, but the whole energy behind a frat is that it's not a mature energy. It's not a mature and developed manhood type of energy because and oftentimes fraternities, these occur at the point of our lives where we're just transitioning into adulthood. So we're still learning who we are. And that transition out of boyhood energy into manhood, we often require a tribe to remind us of that, to give us that sense of space to cultivate that energy within us. And I wanted to touch here as we close up the call. I really, really like this. I just started reading this and it came at a perfect time because this is from the book King, Warrior, Magician. So the King, Warrior, Magician, Rediscovering the Archetypes of the Mature Masculine by Robert Monroe and Douglas Gillette. This is an incredible book that has really opened my eyes to the different spectrums that we fall under in cultivating our sense of manhood. It shows how we transition from the boyhood energies into manhood and the different archetypes that are involved in that process. So you have your king, your warrior, your magician, and your lover. The immature masculine is down here at the bottom. So these are all part of the immature masculine. In order for us to transition from the immature masculine into the mature masculine, there is a rite of passage, or rites of passage rather, that we had to go through. Initiations into a deeper sense of ourself. And so I'm just going to go down the list and touch on the main ones here. I believe I covered all of these. Actually, I was just adding the last two, the high chair tyrant, the weakling prince. I forgot to add those in initially. So hopefully I got everything. Oh, I got a little typo there. Kicking, add screaming. So first one is the high chair tyrant. This is the image, basically, if you could imagine it, of a child sitting in his high chair, banging his spoon on the tray and screaming for his mother to feed him. Like, it has to come now when he wants it, not when things align. It's like he believes he is the center of attention and everything should revolve around him. Believes that others exist to meet his all-powerful needs and desires. But he hurts himself with his grandiosity because of the limitless of his demands. And eventually, as he goes through life, these demands aren't going to be met by life itself, by people outside of his sphere of influence, by people outside of his mother, his father. Once he goes and transitions into life, he has to face challenges that he didn't have to face before. This is often like the king, rather the boy that is to become king, but believes that everything is. It's like he has a sense of arrogance. He has a sense of, I have here, overweening pride because he feels that others need to revolve around him and center, um, basically do what he wants at his whim. Even the king itself, if he goes through this and this is how he develops and he grows up to be this type of king, he's going to be a very domineering, a very controlling king. He's not going to have the best interests of his people. It's all going to be about him and how he can make his life better. And then, yeah, some characteristics are the arrogance, just connected to his overweening pride, childishness, and irresponsibility. What psychologists would refer to today as a narcissist. Next one we have is the weakling prince. This falls under, of course, the king archetype. So the weakling prince has very little personality, no enthusiasm for life, and very little initiative. Basically, everything is too much for him. It's like any time that any conflict arises, he wants to whine and cry and turn to somebody else to solve his problems for him. And being that prince, he often has his parents, he has all of his maids and servants and all of the people bowing down to him at his will because he's the one that's going to inherit the throne one day. And his parents often yield to his commands, giving him whatever he wants. He uses his sense of helplessness as a dishonest mechanism to uh, to manipulate people and control them. The So I added this in here. I believe this actually doesn't necessarily fall under the precepts of the pre-osseous, I'm saying that right, pre-occulus child. So that is, as you can see here, so that's the top of the spectrum. Okay, I see. So upon my research, I was a little confused because of the way that it was in the book, but I thought that it was honestly until I got on this call, right before I got on this call, I didn't even connect the dots because I had typed this up yesterday, posted in my group, the different shadow archetypes, but I left out high chair tyrant and the weakling prince. So I can touch on this later, the actual archetypes that manifest at the top of the boyhood energy. Because now that I'm thinking back, it does make sense. Some of the things that I was reading, even in talking about the hero, it talks about how the hero, the death of the hero leads him to his sense of manhood. What's going on, Vlad? What's going on, brother? So,
Hello.
touching on the shadow archetypes right now, and talking about here the how the boy manifests or transitions into manhood through these various archetypes, these shadow archetypes. And then at the top here, let's see. Okay, so the pre-auspicious child, that's at the top of the magician. So each of the archetypes, the king, the warrior, the magician, the lover, has their own archetypes within them for which they have to go through. And as they transition from boyhood to manhood, they're going to go through a phase, a journey, a shift that will allow them to make that transition into manhood. And I'll touch on this later, but I know I did briefly touch about this, but basically, that's the child that asks why about everything. It's the origin of our curiosity and our adventurous impulses. The next one I wanted to touch on here is the know-it-all trickster, which falls under the magician archetype. The know-it-all trickster, he often plays tricks on people of a more serious nature. So it's like it's not necessarily out of fun. It's out of like to what's the word? It's a it's a manipulation tool that he uses because
On
he
purpose.
things and basically wants to use his understanding to play tricks on people, to basically take them out of their power, to take them out of their frame, so that it puts him in that place of power. And once he does that, he betrays us and laughs at our misery. Very passive aggressive, often has an authority problem, and he never wants to take responsibility for his actions. Got a guest here. He trying to think of an example from a movie. I'll have to go back through and add examples of all of these archetypes, which I've touched on the main archetypes, the 12 main archetypes in a previous video. But yeah, so that's the know-it-all trickster. That's one aspect of the magician archetype, the shadow aspect of the magician archetype. The next one is the dummy, which honestly, I actually dealt with this a lot when I was growing up for myself. It's like something that I had to work through, just playing naive at times, acting like I don't know something when I really do. I would do this a lot in school, especially because I would use it. Sometimes I would genuinely not know, but then I would also play on that same energy to like help extend the lesson so that we don't have to, so that maybe we don't get as much homework at the end. So this is something that I worked through. And then as I got to college, I had to realize that this type of energy that I was holding myself into, this archetyped, I didn't understand archetypes and all that then, but I understood that this was holding me back. It was like a programming that I was following that kept me locked in a cycle. So I couldn't really break out of it to become my highest and best self. And I wouldn't say I did it out of a sense of like grandiosity because I felt too important, but I feel like there's different reasons why we do these things, why we fall into these archetypes. But the only way for us often to go through to get to the highest level of manhood, to embody our highest archetypes that we can, is to go through these lower boyhood energies to, I mean, we're all on a different path. We all have different rites of passage that we have to make. And so for me, this is one that I had to go through. So, uh, yeah, so that's something that I dealt with. And basically, by becoming more present and aware of what is happening, and he begins to take more accountability, it will help him to shift out of that energy. So it becomes more connected. Let's see, so that is under the okay, yeah, so it's under the magician archetype. And then once he transitions out of those two, it will lead him to the pre-osseous child, which is what I was talking about a second ago, the boy that's eager, asking why of everything, which really that's the origin of our own inner child, because we're always curious, we're always seeking, we're always looking for something deeper in life. I feel like as a natural instinct, we're all doing that. And then the next one is the lover archetype, which as I talked about, I was a little confused initially when I was putting these in. So the Oedipal child is basically at the top of that pyramid. So that's once you have overcome the two shadow archetypes, the dreamer and the mama's boy, then it puts you into the Oedipal child. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Oedipal child. It's basically a mystic oneness, a mutual communion. Yeah, it's just basically acknowledging, being able to see the beauty of all things through divine feminine, like being able to honor the divine feminine for what she is. So the mama's boy is the analogy of like tied to a mama's apron string. He's always looking for his mom to give him the answers. He's always looking for his mom, no matter what happens in life, when things get tough, instead of digging deep within his own energy, within his own core, he looks for others, which comes in the form of his mother. And these men often get caught up chasing the beautiful, poignant yearning for union with the mother. And this happens through various relationships that they have with other women. They jump from woman to woman looking for this energy, seeking for someone to give him that sense of comfort that his mom once gave him. But yeah, as we all find out, it's the answer's inside of us all. You can't find that in somebody else, especially when you are in a distorted energy of the mama's boy. You're not able to actually come into union with a woman, even if you do find the perfect one that will lift you up, that will not in the sense of like you need someone, but someone that will be there to complement you. And the only way that we can break out of that is to find that sense of strength within us. And that's a lot of what I talk about, is breaking away from that boyhood energy um, that's so dependent on the mother and becoming more dependent on ourselves. And yeah, I just had in here that one of the side effects, he may compulsively masturbate because he's not able to find that in his own life. So he seeks that within his imagination. He seeks that in relationships. And that's what keeps him ultimately from finding true union with that energy that he's looking for. And oftentimes they also don't really want to do the work to like embody that sense of who they could be to attract that into their lives. The last few I have here is the dreamer. Looks like I skipped around, so I didn't have an order, but so the dreamer, and this is another one that I've dealt with, is showing signs of passivity, having a relationship with intangible things more so than the world that he's living in, the physical world. His dreams tend to be melancholy or highly idealistic, like ethereal, to the point where it's almost intangible, it's unattainable. And that's not to say that it's a bad thing, because I feel like we all need to be a dreamer in our own lives so that we can see what's possible, that we can have a higher vision. But if we're not able to create, to actually put in the actions, the steps to bring that into physical reality, then it's just going to remain a dream. And we're going to get lost in this endless cycle, never really being able to take action, never really being able to do something more. So it keeps us stuck. And honestly, that's the cycle that I've struggled with the most. Is like going from ideas to action and like putting it into like creating it as a real thing in the physical world. So the dream or the mama's boy, those are both tied into the archetype of the lover. The last one that I have is the warrior archetype. That's the grand standard bully, which he uses his sense of superiority to dominate those around him. It's like your standard bully on a playground that's thinks he's superior to everyone else. And because he has that strength, he has that confidence in himself, rather overconfidence to the point of utilizing it in a negative way. He steps on other people. He doesn't care what happens because it's all about him. So he wants to use that sense of power to push that on other people so that he feels stronger within himself. Because at the core of it, he has a deep underlying cowardice and insecurity, but he doesn't want to show this to the world. So instead, what he does, he uses that insecurity to push him to step on other people, to bully them so that he can feel better about himself. Then on the flip side of that spectrum is the coward. The coward shows extreme reluctance to stand up for himself. He usually runs away from a fight, claiming to be the more manly, and because he doesn't want to step into that fire, to stand for what is right, to stand for his values, to take up for other people, because it's like he hasn't cultivated that energy within himself to do that for himself. So how can he do that for other people? And this is another one that I've struggled with because I've always been, as a kid growing up, I was really sensitive. I was like, my parents would raise their voice at me, and I would try everything in my power, and I would just break down. And it took me a long time, actually, within the past year, I would say I really cultivated this fire within me that I felt like I've really shifted out of that energy, because I used to, even when conflict arose, it was like I wasn't able to step into that fire. And that's been a huge driver of why I created this group, why I created, why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I know that for me, it was something that I was lacking, and I didn't have the understanding to know how to step out of that. For me, the way that did step out of that was going on a rite of passage, was going to Egypt. Because once I bought my plane ticket, something shifted in me. There was a literal fire, like a literal metaphysical fire that was cultivated in that moment. Because from that moment forward, without even trying to, when someone would step on, overstep their boundaries, would say something that was disrespectful towards me, it would instantly light me up in a way that before I had to almost talk myself into it. I had to like logically try to convince myself like, okay, this isn't right. This goes against what you believe. You need to speak out against it. But now it's like when someone does something, says something to me, it's like instantly I can feel that fire activate. And it's like I still don't react to it. I still, ground myself before I speak. At least I try to. Um, But I noticed that after I bought my plane ticket, like people would say something to me, and without even trying, I'll just get activated in a way that I'd never felt before. And I thought maybe, okay, maybe this is just a phase. But over the next few months, I realized that it continued to happen to the point where I can't allow people to step on me in the same way that I used to. I can't allow that because it's keeping me from stepping into myself, from being the leader that I know that I need to be, and helping others to become the leader that they need to be. This is something that I feel like we all deal with. I wouldn't say all of these archetypes, these shadow archetypes, but there's especially a few, like I mentioned for myself, that I had to go through, that we all have to go through. We're all on different spectrums, but it comes with being present and being able to recognize that within ourselves before we can make that shift. And and sometimes it happens unconsciously. Like for me, with making the trip to Egypt. I knew that I had to make this trip. I knew that it was a pilgrimage that I had to make for myself. I'd felt it for years. I didn't know where exactly, but when the opportunity came and I was called to that, it's like the hero's journey. It's like I felt that call to adventure. When that call to adventure arose, I knew that if I did not step into that, I would continue to perpetuate these cycles because that was, and now that honestly, now that I'm saying it out loud, like that was me coming face to face with that sense of coward, that coward archetype. If I'd taken that path, then I would have, you know, basically hid away. I wouldn't have taken the trip because of fear of stepping into something more than of my a deeper version of myself, stepping into that fire and actually taking the action that I needed to take. When I had that feeling, that call to action, it was like a feeling of life or death. I don't know how else to explain it. It was like if I did not do this, a part of me was going to die. If I didn't do this by the end of the year, then a part of me was going to die. And I might never be able to get it back, at least in this life. I mean, I'm sure I could, but it might take years for me to get to that point again. And the way that the world is changing and evolving, I don't know if I would have that time. Not only that, but my passport was actually going to expire after that year. So it was like prime time, the only time that I could go, essentially. I mean, I could always renew my passport, but I just knew that where I was at in my life, if I didn't make that trip, then I wouldn't have cultivated that energy to give me the ability to make the transition. And I just wanted to touch on this again here. I just posted this in my group. I need to add, because I forgot I left out these two shadow archetypes. But yeah, this has been really eye-opening for me to see, not only for my own life, but other people in my life and the different spectrum that they fall under. Because like I said, if we're able to recognize that, then we can shift out of it into our highest version, into manhood, essentially. That's what we're all moving towards. And we all have to embody aspects and elements of each of these in order to step into our fullest self. Even like the king, a good example of the king archetype, the divine masculine king archetype is Aragorn. I think I'm saying that right. From Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I believe that's how you say Aragorn. But anyway, he was the king, and he could have stepped into the throne at any time. But he spent years, decades exploring the world, going on pilgrimages to better understand himself as people. You know, he stepped into his warrior archetype. He was willing to fight and die for Frodo to get the ring to Mordor. He had connected to his magician self. He had connected to his lover self. You know, all these different aspects he had to explore on some level in order for him to step into his highest version, his divine masculine king archetype that he was. And the same is true for all of us. We have to go through these different phases of our lives if we wish to truly embody that within us. And it's going to test us. It's going to come with their own challenges and obstacles. Each person deals with different obstacles and challenges. Each archetype even is going to give us different challenges to go through, to work through. But if we know the vision, if we know what we're moving towards, And it will give us the power to step into that, to find a solution, and to embody a deeper layer of ourself. So we can step into these mature masculine, or as I refer to, divine masculine archetypes. So that's basically all I got. Did you have any questions, Vlad?
Hey Cody, nice presentation. I joined a bit in the middle, so I missed the beginning.
Yeah, I'll be reposting uh the link to the replay in the group. I'm usually about a week out, so it'll be likely next week when I post it, because I'm gonna post last week's today sometime. But um, but yeah, if you want to check that out, it'll be in the group under the replays. I can just go through it real quick and show you.
Yeah, I just disconnected. I'm using my phone for Wi-Fi, sitting at a cafe.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
okay,
good, brother.
I can hear you. Yeah,
Yeah, it's great to connect with you, though, man. I'm glad you can come on the call.
yeah, same. I was actually wanted to ask you if we can jump on a call sometime today or tomorrow, but then I saw you had a calendar open in live, so I just joined.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
You have
Yeah,
cats. Love cats.
yeah, they love to jump on us like we're little platforms. They just jump on our shoulders. They're
Yeah,
hilarious. I love them though. They're cute. We have a dog and a bunny too, actually. Just
yeah.
two cats.
I have a hamster because
Oh,
my
nice.
wife's unfortunately allergic to cats, but she
Hmm.
loves cats and animals. But yeah,
I understand that. I'm slightly allergic myself. Once I moved in with my girlfriend, we took me a minute to get used to them. The little one, the orange one, he came along later on, but the dark gray one, she's been with my girlfriend for about a year before I came.
mm-mm.
Think about a year.
That's cool. That's cool.
But um, but yeah, man, I'll just scroll through real quick. Just touched on how I used this quote that I really liked because so the battlefield is where friendships are forged and brotherhoods are tested. Because often through for men we grow best through adversity. So I thought that was a really fitting quote, and it's kind of connected how the divine masculinity connects to all these different points that I'm touching on each week. So today's is brotherhood. So I just kind of connect the dots, how they connect back, and how it's ultimately moving us to our core self.
Mm.
So I just have a little graph for that, and then just basically touched on what brotherhood is and
I
the
joined on the
idea.
right time.
Yeah, a wizard, a wizard is always on time. Or what's the saying? A wizard is never late. So I really like the concept of the constructive interference. This comes from the 21 Lessons of Merlin,
Mm.
and basically it's like attracts like. So you have men and women, obviously they're opposites, so they attract like magnets. But in certain situations, when we're trying to amplify the same type of energy that we're creating, we need something similar, like a constructive interference, to add to that instead of
Yeah.
to basically cancel it out.
Mm.
So he talks a lot about the importance of having gender specific initiations,
Mm.
and for that purpose, because it creates, and I just have like a different wave patterns here. So the destructive interference basically cancels itself out, and that's where the point is darkest. The constructive interference, which is like attracts like, men coming together, women coming together, it is where it's brightest. So I really want to touch on that idea because it's been a huge game changer for me, honestly. I found his book, The 21 Lessons of Merlin. If he's like the Merlin, I don't know if you're familiar. He's like the archetype that,
Merlin is like a wizard from
yeah,
one of the fantasy stories books kind of thing.
Yeah,
Like
which I,
King Arthur, I think
yeah,
Merlin
exactly.
was in the yeah. Yeah. Nah,
Yeah,
I love the
so
story King Arthur, but yeah.
I feel like you'd love that book, man. It was a game changer for me. It basically walks through King Arthur's journey to becoming the king, and it's I believe it's a real story. Like there's some myths out there, but I believe this was an actual thing that happened.
Mm.
Merlin helped to King Arthur to step into that king archetype himself by taking him through various rites of passage, and the 21
What
lessons of Merlin, basically each chapter focuses on a specific lesson. Then at the end of the chapter, they tie back in how it all connects and has like a specific point. And then the chapter itself is like a story. So it's like the story of King Arthur as he goes through, and at the end of the that lesson, then it has like the charts and the graphs and the science.
I'm back again. Disconnected at the point when I asked you to wait.
Oh yeah, you're good. But yeah, it's a really good book, man. If you wanted to check it out, it's after I went through my Dark Night of the Soul, basically I lost everything. Ended up on back to square one. That's the book that I actually started reading. I discovered it through a mentor of mine that I'd met who embodied that sense of wizard archetype. He
Mm.
he introduced me to it, and then I began to read it and incorporate the lessons here and there, and it still carries with me today.
I want to hear your full story, man. Like maybe a short version. I don't know if you want to jump on a call tomorrow to like talk in that way, like
Okay.
a meet and greet.
Yeah.
But this is really interesting. I find it quite fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, brother. I definitely would be down for that. Yeah, I'll message you after I get off the call and we can figure out a time. Um, let's
Yeah.
say
When
tomorrow, maybe today. Probably tomorrow would be better. But we can figure out what time works best for you. And I know we're different time zones too, so
yeah, it's like it's 6 o'clock by my side in the evening.
it's 6 o'clock right now. Gotcha.
Yeah. And your side?
It is basically 11 a.m. here.
In the morning.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
Awesome,
Yeah.
brother. Well, before we hop off here though, do you have any questions specific to like the lesson? And we can dive deeper into the
Well,
everything.
like I actually wanted to ask before we disconnected.
Yeah.
What is the meaning of an archetype? Archetype? I think it's the first time I've heard of this word, to be
Oh,
honest.
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I should have covered more of that. Um, so basically, the archetype is like a framework for which we embody. If you could think of, I like the analogy that they used in the book. If you have like a magnet under a piece of paper and you put these iron filings on the paper, the way
Mm,
that they orient themselves around the magnet is similar to how the archetypes are for us. So we have these energies within us at all
mm,
times. So each of these archetypes, there's 12 main archetypes, which actually I have a session that I did from a previous Fire Code Friday talk
mm,
where I like dive deep into what archetypes is, but basically it's like how we connect to different versions of ourselves. And so there's the 12 main archetypes. Generally, we'd fall under one main one that we often gravitate towards specifically, but to some degree, we embody all of them at some point in our lives, to some degree.
mm.
And let's see, I have a chart somewhere I could send you of, it's posted somewhere in the group. If you go under like the archetypes section of the
Yeah.
group, I should have it posted in there. There's like a picture and it has the 12 archetypes,
Let's
and it's similar
see.
to 12 is like really the magic number because there's like the 12 zodiac signs, 12 archetypes. Carl Jung really talks about archetypes a lot. He's really the one that popularized it.
I think it's this one, like artist, innocent, sage, explorer, outlaw, magician, hero, lover,
Mhm. Yeah,
jester.
exactly.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. Within each archetype, which I talk about this as well, within each archetype, they all have their own like hero's journey, so to speak.
Mm,
So there's like different rites of passage that come with the different archetypes. Um,
mm,
and then there's also four main archetypes, like the four major Jungian archetypes, I should say, which are the self, the shadow, the persona, and then the anima and animus, which is like our basically like our feminine, masculine polarity.
mhm.
But he talks about that a lot, and there's the 12 main archetypes, which I was just discussing. So archetypes is kind of it's kind of I guess if you want to look at it as like a mold, like a form.
Personality, like a
Yeah.
personality kind of type.
Yeah, it's kind of like a yeah, personality, like a form
Like
if
your
you
character, what kind of makes
Mm,
you uh, vibrate, if I can put it that way.
exactly, yeah. And like in a video game, I like to use video game analogies as a an ex-gamer. It's like you have different archetypes, different characters that you can pick. There's like the dwarf and the archer and the elf. I mean, depending on what game, like if you're playing Elder Scrolls or something, they have different characters, but they
Yeah,
all have different archetypes within them that they are basically connected to, that they essentially embody, which gives them
yeah,
different personality traits, gives them different weaknesses and strengths.
yeah,
But basically, it's like the form that we fall into, and often is like we all have our own main archetype
yeah. Mm,
that we connect to. Like I said, each of the archetypes we're going to embody or connect to at some point in our lives to some degree. Some more than others, of course, but everybody's on a different path.
mm,
So it's something that's really helped me to kind of make these concepts tangible so that I understand what I'm going through in this journey.
mm.
So it's yeah, if you want to check it out, man, it's definitely super fascinating. And I don't know if you've gotten into Carl Jung, spelled
Korea
Jung,
sounds familiar.
but he has a lot of incredible content about that as well. He's like I said, he's the one that really popularized it, the term
Mm,
archetypes. He was mentored by Sigmund Freud, if I'm not mistaken, but they had much different views when it came to certain things, so they ended up parting ways at some point. But
differences of opinion. Yeah,
yeah, but
no,
yeah, man.
it seems like you're onto something. Like when I came halfway through, I was listening, like, and when you were talking about shadow selves, like the bully, coward, or the other types, it's it's interesting to think about, like, maybe it's that person that was like that or something like that. Maybe that could have been me at some stage.
Mm,
And I like how you gave examples from your experience as well. Like, I think the dummy one, like, you're aware, but you, like, just keep it to yourself, like, kind of acting dumb
mm,
just because you don't want attention, maybe, or something like that. Interesting.
yeah. Or we do want attention, because like for me, I would draw all the attention to me, be like a class clown, and I would just be like saying a bunch of dumb shit, and sometimes I would genuinely not know what I'm talking about. Like I would genuinely have a question, but then there would be the times where I'm just like just wanting to say dumb shit just to attract attention. Like not necessarily consciously, but
Like, be
subconsciously.
funny.
Yeah, yeah, be funny, basically. But yeah, it definitely leaked over into my life, and I realized in college, like, man, I can't keep doing this if I want to actually evolve.
Yeah.
So I knew that I had to shift out of that archetype.
You also mentioned something about going to Egypt. Like, you felt like if you don't do something, it's like a piece of you is gonna, like, die or something like that. Do you think, like, that spiritual wise, we, like, subconsciously or unconsciously put ourselves into difficult situations in order for us to learn something out of it because we're so much into the comfort zone? that we forcing ourselves, or something forcing us to evolve to like the next level, so to speak.
Mm.
Did you felt like that when you went to
Yeah.
Egypt?
Yeah, I love that question, brother. That's I definitely feel like we sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's unconscious. I know for me, it was something that had been brewing for years. Like I'd felt I'd been talking to my friend about it, like, man, I feel like I need to go somewhere. There's like a journey, but I don't know
Mm,
where, and I don't know when, I don't know how, but I knew when that time came and I had the call to that adventure, I knew that I'd take it. I knew that it was like this is my moment where I need to step into that person that I've been running from, that to like truly step in and embody that for myself, or else I'm going to keep repeating these cycles. I'm going to keep staying stuck and I'm not really going to get anywhere. It was like if I didn't go to Egypt when I did, then I feel like I
you'd
would make no
stay there.
progress.
Yeah, you'd stay there, and that would be your life.
And
Yeah.
I would have, and for me, I would have felt like such a coward for backing out and not doing what I knew in my heart that I needed to do. Like I would have
Mm,
felt, I would have regretted it for the rest of my life. And I knew that. It was like something, not only that, but I feel like I needed to, like, there was an energy shift that needed to happen by
mm,
going there. Also did some like grid work while I was there as well. Like there's like ley lines that correspond throughout the planet. It's kind of like our bodies. You know, how you have certain points that are stronger than others that have energy,
mm.
like pressure points. The Earth is like that. There's certain points that, especially being at the pyramids, you know, there's a lot of energy running through that area. So like for me, I feel like I needed to do some work, some grid work while I was there. And I like meditated in the pyramids. I did stuff like that. So that was part of the process. But more so than that, I knew I needed to break out of the realm of my old self to step into something new. I needed to do something different.
Yeah, man, I had the exact same thing. Like, what is it? Like 6 years ago, 6 or 5 years ago, I got this opportunity to go work in Sweden. Like, I was living in South Africa in Bloemfontein, like right in the middle of South Africa. Uh, it's like a sub-Saharan desert. It's just shrubs and bushes everywhere, and it's felt like a dead-end place. You know, so I felt like if I don't go, I will regret it for the rest of my life. And
Mm,
I just like had to push it through. And I even stepped over my parents because they were telling me like, what if it's a scam? What if somebody's gonna harvest your organs? Like
mm,
I don't even know like how they got to that point, but I said like, just sign my papers. I am going. You know, uh, like I would have rather died than not taken the chance to go and explore a new place. Like,
mm.
yeah. But
Love that.
I'll tell you a background story about that a bit later. But I think
Okay.
I had the same thing as you did.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that's huge. It's I feel like we get those adversities, we get those pushbacks from people in our lives just to test us to see how bad we want to do it, to see how bad we want to make that shift. You know, I had the same thing. Like my family was telling me like, you know, what if someone kidnaps you? What if some shit happens? You know, like why do you have
Yeah,
to go now? Why not go later on? I'm like, why wait? You know, like I can't wait. Like I know that I have to do this now.
yeah,
And it's like it really tests your resolve. But through that, it's like an initiation in itself,
mm,
pushing back against the things pushing against you, you know, the people that, I mean, it's often it's out of compassion, you know, they care about you, they love you, they want the best for you, but they don't understand your journey. And it's like
mm.
sometimes we just got to take that leap, man, and I'm glad you did, brother. That's huge.
Yeah. And now I'm living in Turkey. My wife is Turkish, and yeah, I'm like living on the seaside, really nice. But
Awesome.
still got my own challenges to work through.
Right.
Yeah, awesome to meet you. So you live in Chesapeake Shores, Chesapeake.
No, it was Chesapeake, Ohio, but I'm not living there now. I'm actually in Kentucky. It's like
Mm,
another state, so it's I don't know,
yeah.
just a few hours away, but it's kind of around the same general area. I like to live in the mountains, basically. There's like not like in the mountains, but there's
Mm-mm.
like the Appalachian Mountain area, basically, you could say.
That's cool.
So
That's cool.
I
Like a
really,
national park kind of vibe. You can go hiking and
right.
stuff like that.
Yeah, I really love the mountains. I really like beaches too, but I mean, feel like I've always been more of a mountain man. I love the trees. I mean, it's all healing. I feel like we all have different places that we're called to. And for me, it's definitely been huge, especially when I went to Las Vegas back in like 2018, I believe it was. And man, it
Mm-hmm.
was a huge shift for me because I didn't realize how used to like greenery and trees that I'm not sure the what it's like where you're
Nature.
at, like the weather. But I know for me, it was like I've grown up around trees and just grass and this type of weather my whole life. So when I go out west, there's like basically a desert. There's like no grass, no trees. It was like I had went to a completely different world, like I was on Mars. And it's cool, man, to get that shift, that perspective shift, really, to see like what's really out there and
Yeah.
to see what it is that we need for ourselves to heal and grow.
Yeah, man. Definitely. Definitely.
But yeah, brother, I definitely will be in contact with you. We'll set up a call today or tomorrow, depending on what our schedules look like. It's a little late there today, so it'll probably have to be tomorrow.
Yeah,
I got,
tomorrow I think would be nice Saturday, like nice chill Saturday. Then we can talk a bit more, just like connect. But yeah, I really like where you're going with this. It's intriguing to say the least.
I appreciate that, brother. And it was great to have you on the call, man. Was there any other questions I can answer before we go? Like in,
I'll have more questions for you later because I need to get home to my wife. I need to pick up a few things for. We're gonna have some pizza night. Gonna make some fresh pizza.
ooh, nice.
Yeah,
Fresh pizza. That sounds good. Save me some, man.
we'll send it over.
All right, sounds good.
All
All
right,
right,
sweet.
Vlad. Well, it's a pleasure to connect with you, and
It's good to
look forward to
connect with
talking with
you.
you, my brother.
All right, peace out, K Dog.
All right, peace out.